How are you guys doing? Today is Thursday, June 17th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an individual profile on Amari Cooper. The elite wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys turns 27 today, and with this episode of The Elite, I plan on going through his accomplishments and his accolades to paint a bigger picture to give a better understanding as to why I labeled Amari Cooper as one of my elite wide receivers for the 2021 calendar year. If you're unfamiliar with Amari Cooper, he's a very big and stocky wide receiver, of course, amazing athlete, great lateral speed, and of course he's been able to show his impact with different quarterbacks throughout his career, from ever since he's been on the main stage from college, even now playing for the Dallas Cowboys, America's most watched team. He stands at about 6'1", 225. So of course, like I said, he's very fast. He's a mismatch to most DBs in the league. And just to give a little bit of background on him, he's from Miami, and Teddy Bridgewater, the starting quarterback from the Panthers last season, was his high school starting quarterback. And regardless, he established himself as one of the best young prospects. He was good enough as a high school player to get an offer to go and play at Alabama. And when he went to Alabama, he definitely hit the ground running. In his freshman season in 2012, he would play 14 games in a season where Alabama would win the national championship game against Notre Dame. That was the Manti Te'o season, for context. And within that season himself, Amari Cooper would finish with 59 receptions for 100 receiving yards and 11 touchdowns as a freshman, which is very tough for any Alabama freshman to do. And of course, he put himself in that category. And of course, they already won the SEC championship, of course. Following his freshman season, he would come back for 2013. In that season, he would play 12 seasons, in a season where he had a little bit of an injury hiccup. In that season, he played 12 games, and the Alabama Crimson Tide would go 11-2. They would end up losing the Sugar Bowl that year, as they finished as the 8th best team. But in that season, Amari Cooper would finish with 45 receptions for 736 yards and 4 touchdowns, as his production went a little bit down, but he would bring it right back for 2014. In 2014, he would play all 14 games in a season in which Alabama would lose in the Sugar Bowl to Ohio State. But regardless, they would finish as the 4th best team in football. This was the first season of the college football playoff, I believe, the year in which Ohio State went on to win it all. But still, in that season, in Amari Cooper's junior season, he would finish with 124 receptions, which is more than twice as many receptions as he had in his freshman season, in his historic Alabama freshman season. He finished with 1,727 receiving yards on the year with 16 touchdowns, and he had 7 games of 100 yards or more. And regardless, they lost to Ohio State at the end, but Amari Cooper had established himself as one of the best wide receivers in Alabama history. He was given the Bolitnikoff Award, which is given to the best wide receiver. He was a unanimous All-American, first-team All-SEC. And after that, he was taken with the 4th overall pick in the 2015 draft. He was the first wide receiver taken. This was the draft in which Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, and Dante Fowler were the only players taken ahead of him. Jameis Winston, the only player ahead of him that was named a Pro Bowler. But I digress. And Amari Cooper he would get drafted to play for the Oakland Raiders. I don't know if I said that. The Oakland Raiders took him with the 4th pick in the 2015 draft. And in his age 21 season, in what would have been his senior season at Alabama, he would go on to play 15. He would start 15 of the 16 games he played in a season where the Oakland Raiders would finish with a 7-9 record. They had missed the playoffs as they finished with the 3rd best record in the AFC West, but they had won 4 more games in the previous season. And I believe Derek Carr was the quarterback by then. In 2015, Amari Cooper would finish with 72 receptions for 1,070 yards. As a rookie, by the way, he would finish with 6 touchdowns through the air as well. Not to mention that year he was named to the all-rookie team, of course, but he was named a Pro Bowler in his rookie season for registering 1,000 yards as a rookie. So, of course, that was a great start to his career. Following that season, he would end up coming back to Oakland for his second season. In 2016, in his age 22 season, he would start 14 of the 16 games he played in a season in which the Oakland Raiders would finish with a 12-4 record. That's the best record actually that they'd had since 2020 as a team under Derek Carr. This was the season where Khalil Mack was named the Defensive Player of the Year, with Jack Del Rio being the coach. In this season, Amari Cooper in the 16 games he played, he finished with 83 receptions, which was 11 more than the year before. He had 1,153 yards, which up until then, of course, the most receiving yards he ever had in a season, alongside 5 touchdowns. And once the Raiders made the playoffs, they would lose to the Texans in the very first game, but of course they were a very good team, and Amari Cooper was very integral to that success. So integral that he was named a Pro Bowler in his very second year in the NFL. So, of course, in his very first seasons, he was 2 for 2. And his third season with the Oakland Raiders, his age 23 season in 2017, he would start 12 of the 14 games he played in a season in which the Oakland Raiders would finish with a 6-10 record, losing 6 more games than they had the previous season. And in the season, Amari Cooper would finish with 48 receptions for 680 yards. He would miss the Pro Bowl for the very first time in his career. And of course, the Raiders missed the playoffs, but he would come back for another season, but this time he wouldn't finish it with the Oakland Raiders. In 2018, he started all 15 of the games he played. So for Oakland, he played the first 6 games of the season. That season, he would finish for the Oakland Raiders. He'd finish with 22 receptions for 280 yards and a receiving touchdown in those 6 games. But that was John Gruden's first year coaching there, and I guess the dude wanted draft picks. And in 2018, I'm not sure if this is before or after the Khalil Mack trade, but Amari Cooper was moved in the same offseason for a first-round draft pick that would end up being Jonathan Abram, who they drafted in the very next draft. But regardless, Amari Cooper would finish the season out with Dallas. He would finish with 53 receptions for 725 yards and 6 touchdowns. He played 9 games to finish out a season in which the Cowboys would finish with a 10-6 record, winning the NFC East and making it into the playoffs. And of course he had Dak Prescott, and many people were worried that the Cowboys didn't give Dak Prescott a wide receiver, so they finally gave him a wide receiver, being Amari Cooper. And looking at the whole season, he finished with 75 receptions for 1,005 yards and 7 TDs. That would be the third season in his first 4 years in which he finished with 1,000 receiving yards, and it'll be the third season in the first 4 years in which he was named a Pro Bowler as well. Following the regular season, once they made it into the playoffs, the Cowboys would end up beating the Seahawks in the first round by 2 points, and they lost the divisional round to the Rams in the season where the Rams went to Atlanta to lose in the Super Bowl to the Patriots. That's the last time that the Cowboys have actually been to the playoffs to date, and following that season, Amari Cooper would come back to Dallas for his age 25 season in 2019. In 2019, Amari Cooper would start all 16 of the games that he would play in a season in which the Dallas Cowboys would finish with an 8-8 record. They had won 2 less games than the prior season, but in this season, Amari Cooper would play the full season with the Cowboys. He finished with 79 receptions for 1,119 yards. He had 8 receiving touchdowns. This would be the 1,189 yards is the most receiving yards he's ever put up in a season. The 79 receptions was the second most receptions he'd ever put up in a season, and his 8 receiving touchdowns were the most receiving touchdowns he'd ever put up. And following that season, he would go on to be named a Pro Bowler for the 4th time in his first 5 seasons in the league. And of course, I don't have to say how impressive it is to be named a Pro Bowler at wide receiver multiple times, even more than once, not to mention 4 out of the first 5 seasons. But I'm not even going to get into that. Following his 2019 season, that leads us to this most recent season that he's played, his age 26 season, and a season in which he started 15 of the 16 games, where the Dallas Cowboys finished with a 6-10 record in their first season under Mike McCarthy, which is 2 less wins than the season prior. But regardless, in this season, Amari Cooper will go on to finish with 92 receptions, the most receptions he's ever had in a season, 13 more than the year before. He had 1,114 yards. This is the third time in his career in which he's eclipsed 1,100 receiving yards. He had 5 receiving touchdowns, but for the second time in his first 6 years in the league, he was not named to the Pro Bowl, but regardless, he's still one of the best wide receivers in football, and that leads us to where we are today. He turns 27. Of course, he's nowhere close to slowing down. He's the main option on a very good Dallas offense when they really need to be. No, and I think that what he's doing is really, I think that where he's at a very solid place, and I think that there's still about a few great seasons left in him, and I think, I hope that just going down and just mentioning the fact that he's been a Pro Bowler in 4 of the last 6 seasons should be enough. But with that said, I truly think Amari Cooper is one of the elite athletes of 2021. With that said, I want to thank everyone for listening to this piece. I want to thank NFL.com, ESPN.com, Pro Football Reference, and of course Wikipedia for just the information on how the teams finished, to get a full picture as to gather the research and the understanding for this, just to do this show. And I want to thank everyone once again for listening to all 11 minutes of this piece. If you ever get a chance to listen to Amari Cooper, he currently wears number 19 for the Dallas Cowboys, and of course he's a showstopper. Everyone watches the Cowboys, so you'll probably see Amari Cooper. With that said, thanks for listening to my piece. I hope all is well, and peace out. I'll catch you with another episode tomorrow.